Hey everyone, Mang here, and this is a video that I wanted to make for quite some time. It's my first video with commentary. I tried to do my best, so I hope you'll like it. Quite a lot has changed in Final Fantasy XIV over the last 8 years. Inspired in part by Larry Zor's recent video, link in the description below, I decided it would be fun to point out some changes that in my opinion have made the game better and more enjoyable for players. While making this video, I tried not to repeat anything Larry has talked about, although some of those things would definitely make the top spot on my list too.
I'm looking at you, TP eating Sprint.
Anyway, I hope it proves interesting to newer players and a trip down memory lane for veterans. Many of the things on this list we take for granted nowadays, but it's interesting to know that there was a time when they simply weren't a thing in the game, or existed in a much less convenient version. Initially, this was supposed to be a top 10 list, but as I dug deeper, I remembered so many things that I wanted to include that I had to expand it to 15. If I'm being honest, it was extremely difficult to rank the things I want to talk about, so please take the ranks with a grain of salt, because they are all pretty close when it comes to how I feel they made the game experience better. And of course, there are many others that I could have chosen, but these are the ones that popped into my mind first. So, without further ado, here are my top 15 favorite quality of life changes in Final Fantasy XIV.
Number 15.
A Realm Reborn main scenario revamp. Shadowbringers patch 5.3 brought with it the long-awaited revamp of the A Realm Reborn leveling experience. The overall number of main scenario quests was cut from around 290 to just over 240, depending on your starting city state, and many of the quests that remained were significantly shortened. While it's refreshing to not get stuck in the muck pool that were the quests involving the company of heroes, or get sidetracked by multiple menial tasks when all you want to do is push the story forward, some character building cutscenes unfortunately did not make the cut. Remember the cutscene before Ramuh where the Scions would make fun of Thancred? Or the silly one where Tataru had to run away from a Morbol? Well, they're gone forever, even from the unending journey. And since this made me sad when I found out, I decided to put the 2.0 revamp at rank 15 on my list.
Number 14.
No more restrictions on desynthesis. Did you know that until recently there was a cap on the desynthesis skill? With it, you could initially max out desynthesis for 3 out of 8 crafting jobs, with some leftover points to use as you saw fit. Since desynthesis was introduced in patch 2.3, the cap for your desynthesis skill would increase every few patches, but so did the maximum skill for one job. A high skill in desynthesis meant that you could obtain rare crafting materials from the process, which, for example, allowed you to craft shiny versions of extreme primal weapons. However, as of patch 5.2, the cap has been thrown out, and we can now desynth everything regardless of skill. But a high desynth skill still increases your chances of obtaining rare materials.
Number 13.
Switching audio output without restarting the game. Up until the very end of Stormblood, whenever you wanted to change the game's audio output, for example, you were using your computer's speakers but wanted to switch the headphones, you had to quit the game, change your audio settings, and then restart. Now it happens automatically. It's funny to think that implementing something so simple and yet so very important took so long, but it's here now and that's all that matters. Now, if only we could have an actual option to switch audio devices in the settings, like in other games.
Number 12.
Vesper Bay teleportation tickets. Pray return to the waking sands is an old meme in XIV, and the phrase made us all cringe every time the story quests told us to go back to Vesper Bay, the original headquarters of the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. Nowadays, main scenario quests give players Vesper Bay teleportation tickets, which, upon use, grant quick teleportation to Vesper Bay. But before the ARR quest revamp, every journey back to the Waking Sands took a little longer. There were 2 options. You could either teleport to Limsa Lominsa and use the ferry near the Arcanists Guild, or teleport to Horizon in Western Thanalan and ride, take a chocobo porter, or run on foot to Vesper Bay. After so many years of doing that on alts, I'll take the teleportation tickets anytime, thank you.
Number 11.
Precise locations in the gathering log. Shadowbringers patch 5.5 brought a change to the gathering log that made a lot, if not all, gatherers sigh with relief. Before the change, when you accessed the gathering log either by choosing the search for item in the gathering log in the crafting UI or from the logs menu and wanted to check the gathering location of a specific item, clicking it would simply show you the general map for the zone the item could be found in. In the end, this usually meant that you would check third-party databases for exact locations, unless you felt like running around checking multiple nodes. Now, clicking a gatherable item in the gathering log will show a precise spot where to look, marked with a blue circle.
Number 10.
Materia Melders. With time, leveling Disciple of the Hand jobs, aka crafting jobs, has become easier and more accessible to players whose main focus is combat. But in A Realm Reborn and in Heavensward, becoming a max-level Omnicrafter required a considerable time commitment. This meant that many players who were focused on their Disciple of War and Magic jobs often didn't have all their crafting jobs leveled to cap, or close to cap, which in turn meant that they could not meld their own gear and needed help from other players. If you didn't have a friend crafter, you would have to ask for help in Major City's zone chat and wait for someone to whisper you. Once you met up, you would then right-click on that player's character and select the Request Meld option. Some crafters did this for free, others required a fee. When a crafter didn't want any payment, it was customary and nice to tip them afterwards. In Heavensward patch 3.3, however, NPCs called Materia Melders were added to every major city, enabling players who either did not want to level crafting jobs or haven't gotten around to it yet to meld all their gear regardless of their Disciple of Hand job levels for a static fee. So the custom of looking for other players to meld your gear fell into obscurity.
Number 9.
Character Settings Backup. This feature, added in patch 4.45, made life easier for players who like to swap between playing the game on more than one device. Let's say you usually play on PC, but sometimes you like to sit down on the couch and play on your console. Or perhaps you travel a lot and use a laptop to play when you're away from home. Previously, swapping between two PCs required you to back up your character settings by copying specific folders on one computer and then pasting them onto the other one. This was a bit of a hassle, but since we had no other option, we would still do it. When going from console to PC or vice versa, however, you were out of luck and had to rebuild your UI and settings from scratch. Thanks to the character settings backup feature, it no longer really matters what device you want to swap to, because you can now simply right-click on the character whose settings you want to copy and send them to the server. Afterwards, all you need to do is log in on the new device, choose the same option as before, click download, and boom, your settings are now transferred. The only downside is that you can make a backup only once every 24 hours, but that's still better than not having this option at all.
Number 8.
Quick Gathering. Before patch 5.1, gathering as a miner or botanist required you to click on an item every time you wanted to gather. This was generally fine for occasional gathering, but during longer sessions it would become pretty tedious and even tiring, at least for me. For this reason, I really liked gathering using a gamepad instead of my mouse. With Ishgard Restoration on the horizon, the option to toggle Quick Gathering was introduced in Shadowbringers patch 5.1. Now, when you want to gather big quantities of items and don't really care about quality, you can enable Quick Gathering and you will proceed to gather a single item until the node's gathering attempts are exhausted. While Quick Gathering isn't available for unspoiled nodes and there are situations when you don't want to use it, as well as the fact that once you start Quick Gathering there's no way to stop that I know of, I don't even want to imagine what it would have been like to gather in the Diadem during the multiple phases of the Ishgardian Restoration without this option on the table.
Number 7.
Cross-World Party Finder, Cross-World Link Shells, and the World Visit System. The Party Finder feature was introduced in patch 2.1 of A Realm Reborn and has seen many improvements over the years. At first, it allowed you to create and join pre-made parties made up of people only from your server. This became a problem for players on low pop servers who often weren't able to find groups for the content they wanted to do. So, towards the end of Heavensward, in patch 3.5, the party finder was changed to now be cross-world, which meant people from every server in a particular data center could group up and form cross-world parties. This also meant that you could finally join a party with friends who happened to have their character on a different server than yours and enjoy doing content together. Another important feature that connected players from different servers was the addition of cross-world link shells in Stormblood patch 4.3. You could now create link shells with friends from other servers, as well as enjoy being part of hunting and even raiding communities with people from the whole data center. Breaking down even more barriers, the world visit system was introduced a little later in patch 4.57, allowing players to visit other servers within their data centers, for example to compare market board prices, take down hunt marks, or simply hang out with friends. And with data center travel currently in development, perhaps one day we will even be able to form cross-world FCs as well, but who knows, we'll just have to see.
Number 6.
Simplification of the Glamour Prism system. Nowadays, when you want to glamour the appearance of one item onto another, you need a single Glamour Prism for each piece of equipment you want to glamour. But when the Glamour system was added in patch 2.2 of A Realm Reborn, things were a little bit more complicated. Before patch 3.4 of Heavensward, there were multiple types of Glamour Prisms, which were tied both to equipment type and its item level. Glamour Prisms were divided by Disciple of the Hand jobs that could craft them, and there were 5 grades of each type, corresponding to item level brackets. In order to glamour an item into another item, you had to check which type of prism you needed and of what grade, and then buy them on the market board, or craft them yourself. The type of prism you needed depended on what crafting job could repair the item you wanted to glamour into, as well as that item's item level. For example, if you had an endgame item level chest piece that could be repaired by an armorer, in order to glamour it you needed to buy a grade 5 Glamour Prism armor craft. At the same time, if you had pants of a similar item level, repairable by a weaver, you also needed a grade 5 Glamour Prism cloth craft. So, if for example you were a tank, in order to glamour a whole set of gear and your weapon, you would usually end up needing an appropriate grade Glamour Prism smithing, 3 to 4 Glamour Prisms armor craft, and 1 Glamour Prism leatherworking or cloth craft, usually for pants. This could create a lot of inventory clutter if you wanted to have backup prisms to glamour on the fly, or if you didn't want to visit the market board every time.
Number 5.
Group Pose. Introduced in patch 3.1, Group Pose, or as it's more widely known, G-Pose, is one of my favorite features in XIV. By typing /G-Pose in chat, or /Group Pose, but nobody does that, it puts you in a special interface that allows you to pose your character almost any way you want for those perfect screenshots. With more and more features added to the interface over time, the number of things you can manage is staggering, ranging from stopping time of day and weather, disabling movement whenever you want, adjusting the lighting of your character and camera focus, choosing animations, changing the color scheme, to adding effects, photo frames and stickers. And it works for party members too. All in all, G-Pose is yet another avenue to display your creativity, as well as create amazing screenshots to commemorate special occasions or simply show off your character.
Number 4.
Relocation of the European data center to Europe. When A Realm Reborn launched in August of 2013, all data centers, aka groups of servers assigned to a specific region, were located either in Japan or in Canada. This meant that, although there technically was a dedicated European data center, players like me were still connecting to servers physically located in Canada. Playing with a latency of 150 ms on good days and upwards of 200 ms on bad ones, even with a VPN, was okay for leveling and dungeons, but the problems started showing in extreme trials, where it became more important to react quickly to what was happening in the fight. My most vivid memory of that time is trying to clear and then farm Titan Extreme. Skill, or lack thereof aside, with an average ping of 170 ms, there was virtually no room for hesitation. Landslide lines and weight of the land circles would hit you long after you got out of them on your screen, which forced you to learn the sequence of mechanics throughout the fight by heart. This led to the creation of many memes and jokes that Titan Extreme required precognitive perception to not get hit by anything. As the game gained popularity, however, the European data center was moved to Europe in October of 2015, greatly improving latency for EU players. Oh, how happy we were.
Number 3.
All mounts can now fly. With the release of XIV's first expansion, Heavensward, flying was introduced to the game in all newly added zones. While now all mounts are able to fly once a player unlocks flying, it wasn't so in the past. At first, you could only fly on mounts obtained in Heavensward content, as well as your various chocobos after completing the I Believe I Can Fly quest in Tailfeather in the Dravanian Forelands. With time, more and more mounts that were previously ground mounts only became flying mounts, most getting a special effect that was visible only during flight. The list of flying mounts kept gradually expanding until patch 4.5 of Stormblood enabled all remaining A Realm Reborn mounts, that is, Primal Horses and Beast Tribe Reputation mounts, to finally fly. Since then, all new mounts added to the game are able to fly by default, whether they have wings or not. Does it make sense from a lore perspective? Not really, but it sure is awesome.
Number 2.
Chocobo Companion Improvements. Once you reach level 30 on any Disciple of War or Magic job, you can go to Camp Tranquil in the South Shroud and pick up the quest My Feisty Little Chocobo. When you complete it, you gain the option to summon your company Chocobo by using Gisal Greens to fight by your side for a set amount of time. However, in A Realm Reborn and throughout most of Heavensward, this came with two significant drawbacks. First of all, as long as your Chocobo companion was summoned, you were unable to mount any other mount except for your company Chocobo. If you wanted to ride something else, you would have to dismiss your companion first. Some people would use macros that only summoned their Chocobo while it was out and summoned other mounts when it wasn't. Others kept the button to ride the company Chocobo on their bars at all times. This was later changed in Heavensward in patch 3.1 so that you could ride whatever you wanted and keep your companion summoned. The second issue with having your Chocobo out, however, took a little longer to be addressed. Because of the way that Chocobo companions functioned in the game's engine, until patch 3.5 you were unable to use the duty finder while your Chocobo was out. This was because Chocobos counted as party members, and since, well, they could not fight by your side in duties, it prevented you from registering for anything. The same principle applied to joining parties in the open world, be it hunt groups or fate trains or anything in between. If 4 people had their Chocobos summoned when joining a party, the party would become full, and in order to let other players join, everyone would have to dismiss their Chocobos. Thankfully, this was changed in patch 3.5, and since Chocobos now show up in party frames in a similar way to summoner pets, everyone can have their companions fighting beside them at all times in the open world.
Honorable mentions.
Before we move on to number 1, I would like to give a few honorable mentions to some minor changes that didn't make it onto the list proper. Here they are. Automatic dismounting when talking to NPCs. In the olden days, whenever you wanted to talk to an NPC to take or give in a quest, or to buy or sell items, you had to manually dismount before doing so. While you still can't talk to NPCs while mounted, you are now automatically dismounted when clicking on them. I still sometimes catch myself manually dismounting, only to remember that I no longer have to. A small change, but a welcome one. No more grinding 2000 Grand Company seals to buy a Chocobo issuance. Once you get to the point in the main scenario when you choose a Grand Company and officially join their ranks, you finally gain the ability to ride mounts and to get your company Chocobo. In order to do that, you need to obtain a Chocobo issuance from the quartermaster of your chosen Grand Company. In the past, this item cost 2000 Grand Company seals, which meant that you needed to do quite a bit of farming before you could actually get your Chocobo. After the revamp, the cost of the issuance was lowered to 200 seals and involves no farming whatsoever anymore, because the next story quest outright gives you the required amount. Eggy Glamours and Bahamut size adjustment option. Having been repeatedly asked about this feature, Square Enix added an option to Glamour Summoner Eggies in patch 3.5, though probably not in a way that most players expected. While you still can't change the appearance of your pets to resemble Ramu, Leviathan, Shiva, and so on, you can now change them to look like the carbuncles you used to summon as an arcanist by typing a command in the chat box. It's a nice little change, and I personally like to swap my pet's appearance from time to time when I get bored of their regular forms. Another good change when it comes to summoner pets came with patch 4.1, which enabled players to reduce the size of their Bahamut Eggy after many complaints that it was simply too big. Funnily enough, this change also allows you to make Bahamut even bigger than he already was, if you want to bask in all of his glory while he takes up most of the space on your screen. Quick desynthesis. I put this addition as an honorable mention because of the thousands of fish I was left with after the first phase of the Ishgardian restoration, which I had to desynth manually one by one. Contrary to its name, quick desynthesis can still take a long time depending on how many items you want to break down, but it allows you to desynth big amounts of items automatically while you enjoy your coffee or lunch break, watch something on the internet, read a book, or even take a nap.
Number 1.
Glamour, Glamour Plates, and the Glamour Dresser. I think some of you already suspected that this would be my number one choice for this list, and well, you are right. Back when I still played World of Warcraft as my MMO of choice, I fell in love with transmogrification, so it was a feature I sorely missed in A Realm Reborn. You can imagine my excitement when Glamour was added in patch 2.2. It was far from perfect, however, like these things usually are. The Prism system was overly complicated, as I've already discussed previously. Each item needed to be glamoured separately, and you still needed to keep your glamour items in your retainer's inventories or in your own bags. This was later remedied, to an extent, by the addition of the Glamour Dresser in patch 4.2. As of right now, this nifty little thing allows you to store up to 400 items whose appearance you can then use to create your own outfits, and then save them by using another feature added in the same patch called Glamour Plates. I myself can no longer imagine an FFXIV in which Glamour Plates don't exist. Once you've saved your desired look, you can simply access the Glamour Plates interface from your character window. From here, you can browse your saved sets and apply them with the click of a button, as long as your current job can wear those items, of course. Changing glamour this way doesn't consume glamour prisms. Those are required, however, when you want to store items in the Glamour Dresser. The only significant drawback is that glamour plates don't work in non-rest areas, so swapping between jobs in those areas will dispel your glamour temporarily. Also, I wish there were more than 15 plates for us to use, but maybe that will happen in the future, we'll see. One can only hope. Even though I love the glamour system so much, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't like to see some improvements to it in the future. With the staggering amount of items you can already acquire in XIV, and it growing larger with every expansion, if there is one thing I would like to see, it would be an appearance collection, similar to the one that currently exists in WoW. This would alleviate the inventory clutter that plagues XIV's glamour system in its current form, where you can quickly fill up your glamour dresser. Yes, I am myself less than 10 items away from the cap at the moment, forcing you to have your retainers hold items that you'll maybe one day want to use in a glamour set. Overall, Glamour is an amazing system, and I'm really glad it was added to the game, even though it wasn't there from the beginning. Whether you want to run around smacking your enemies while dressed in a t-shirt and jeans, a bikini, a frog suit, or simply an older set of gear you're really fond of, Glamour's got you covered. It allows for a great amount of self-expression and has resulted in in-game fashion becoming something incredibly relevant. After all, as we like to often say, Glamour is the true endgame. And that's a wrap for this video. Hope you liked it, and if you didn't, well, that's okay too. If you enjoyed it, consider leaving a like or subscribing, or both, and let me know in the comments what your favorite features or changes in FFXIV are. Thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you in another video. Bye bye!